What do you know about Iranian President Ebrahim Raisolsadati, and a brief about his life from birth to death. Ebrahim Raisolsadati, Part 2. And last, we continue to complete the conversation to explain the whole story to the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisolsadati. After the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, Raisi stated on the 16th of August that the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan offered a chance for stabilizing the country, which Iran would support. He also called on all parties to form an inclusive government. On the 4th of September, he urged that elections be held to elect a new Afghan government as soon as possible. On the 18th of September, he stated that Iran will not allow the establishment of any terrorist group, including the Islamic State, along its border with Afghanistan and use it for attacks on other nations. In addition, he called on the Taliban to form an inclusive government. In April 2022, Raisi warned that Israel would be targeted by his country's armed forces if it made the slightest move against Iran. During an interview in September of that year, he denounced the Abraham Accords and called Israel a false regime. Raisi threatened major Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, and stated that the only solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the establishment of a Palestinian state from the river to the sea. Raisi said that his government's priority in the meeting with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was to strengthen strategic ties between Iran and Syria. He criticized the Saudi-led blockade of Yemen and called for a ceasefire. In March 2022, according to Foreign Policy, Raisi pledged an alliance in favor of Russia when the Russian invasion of Ukraine started. Negotiations with the U.S. over the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action have continued to be stalled under Raisi, with him accusing the Americans of delaying and dragging their feet. Between the 17th of February 2023, Raisi visited China and met Chinese leader Xi Jinping. During the meeting, the two countries signed 20 cooperation agreements and agreed to boost relations. Following the talks, Saudi Arabia and Iran agreed to restore diplomatic ties cut in 2016 on the 10th of March after a deal brokered between the two countries by China following secret talks in Beijing. Raisi praised Hamas' the 7th of October attacks on Israel, stating that these actions would lead to the demise of Israel. He condemned Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip during the Israel-Hamas war and accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza with the support of the United States and certain European countries. In January 2024, he predicted that the Israel-Hamas war would result in Israel's destruction. Raisi canceled a trip to Geneva in December 2023 due to accusations against him regarding his role in the torture and murder of prisoners in 1988, for which he could face arrest. Raisi was widely considered to be a hardliner in Iranian politics and was a member of the Principalist faction. He strongly supported sex segregation. He said in a 2014 interview about planned segregation in Tehran municipality, "I think this is a good move because the majority of women do a better job in a totally relaxed atmosphere, and fit are required." He was a supporter of Islamization of universities, revision of the internet and censorship of Western culture. Raisi claimed that economic sanctions were an opportunity. Raisi said, "We will have guidance patrols, but for managers." He also said, "If the government does well, the people will do well." He stated that the amputation of thieves' hands, which is based on a very strict interpretation of Sharia, is one of our honors and that such punishments will not be limited to now and will be continued in the future. He stated that he should be honored and esteemed for his role in the 1988 Iranian mass executions of political prisoners. Raisi was one of 9 Iranian officials listed in November 2019 subjected to sanctions by the United States Department of State due to alleged human rights abuses. He was sanctioned by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control, in accordance with Executive Order 13,876. He was accused of crimes against humanity by international human rights organizations and United Nations special rapporteurs. A formal request had been made to arrest Raisi for crimes against humanity if he attended the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Scotland. In 2017, Raisi reported, "I see the activation of a resistance economy as the only way to end poverty and deprivation in the country." He supports development of the agricultural sector over commercial retail, which will eventually benefit foreign brands. In 2017, he promised to triple the monthly state benefits, currently RLS 450 per citizen, to tackle corruption and create 6 million jobs. He said, "Sanctions should be seen as an opportunity for economic empowerment, and we should strengthen ourselves instead of falling short." Raisi said in regards to the issue of lifting sanctions, "Every government that takes office should lift the oppressive sanctions, and it must be pursued seriously. And the neutralization of sanctions should be on the agenda, and we should not condition the economy. Neither the corona nor the flood nor the sanctions should have an impact." See also, Women's Rights and Women's Rights Movement in Iran. In state-led media, Raisi said that no one has the right to violate the freedom and rights of girls and women, and it is incomplete to talk about culture and economy without the role of women. He emphasized that women's rights are God-given, and the government should not only not lose this right, but it should also create the conditions for it to flourish. And in many spaces, women's role-playing is empty and women's talent, creativity, initiative, and innovation can be used a lot. Despite these comments, Raisi signed orders creating stricter hijab restrictions for women in Iran. Raisi stated, "The intellectual of the society understands before the others and watches the threats of the society, and soon warns the society with his poetry and art and saves the society from falling asleep like a muezzin." According to him, supporting the people of culture and art should not be verbal and should lead to action. He said, "Teachers are the true intellectuals of society and must observe and warn of harm. Teachers are the identifiers and civilizers of society." Homosexuality. Raisi has made discriminatory remarks about homosexuality, calling same-sex relations savagery. The Center for Human Rights in Iran asserts that this type of rhetoric exacerbates prejudice and violence against LGBTQ+ individuals in the country. When visiting Uganda, after the country had recently passed a law instituting the death penalty for homosexuality, Raisi stated, "I believe that this issue and these strong attacks by the West against the establishment of family and against the culture of the nations is another area of cooperation for Iran and Uganda," further adding, "The Western countries try to identify homosexuality as an index of civilization, while this is one of the dirtiest things which have been done in human history." Raisi publicly cast doubt on the historical authenticity of the Holocaust. After being asked on CBS's 60 Minutes if he believed the Holocaust happened, Raisi stated, "There are some signs that it happened. If so, they should allow it to be investigated and researched." Raisi had been described as a favorite and possible successor to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, by several sources. In 2019, Syed Golkar of Al Jazeera called Raisi the most likely successor of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as supreme leader of Iran. In 2020, Dexter Filkins described him as frequently mentioned as a successor to Khamenei. In 2024, Time magazine reported that both Ebrahim Raisi and Mujtaba Khamenei, Khamenei's son, were frontrunners for the position. Raisi's death in a helicopter crash in May 2024 cut short his potential candidacy. On the 19th of May 2024, Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahi, and several other officials were killed when Raisi's helicopter crashed near the village of Uzi in East Azerbaijan province. Iran's semi-official news agency, Mehr News, described them as having been martyred in the crash. Raisi was the second president of Iran to have died in office, following Mohammad Ali Rajai, who died in a 1981 bombing. Following confirmation of Raisi's death, Khamenei declared 5 days of national mourning. Hundreds gathered in Vali-e-Asr Square in mourning for the president. At a meeting of the Assembly of Experts on the 21st of May, a flower-ringed portrait of Raisi was placed on his seat. Leaders and officials of several countries and international organizations extended their condolences and sympathies. The United Nations Security Council stood for a minute's silence for Raisi. Raisi's death received mixed reactions among the public in Iran, with some mourning and others celebrating. Police in Tehran warned that anyone who appeared publicly happy about Raisi's death would be prosecuted. Funerals for the victims began on the 21st of May in Tabriz. A procession of the remains, which were carried on a lorry, was attended by crowds estimated to be in the tens of thousands who were addressed by Interior Minister Ahmad Vahidi. Raisi's and Amir Abdullahian's remains were then taken to Tehran and transported to Qom before being returned to Tehran University for another funeral ceremony on the 22nd of May presided by Khamenei and attended by Makbar and foreign dignitaries, including Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, who spoke at the event, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and a delegation from the Taliban regime of Afghanistan led by Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. The Tehran funeral ceremony was also estimated to have had tens of thousands in attendance. The procession down Tehran's main boulevard was estimated to have been followed by hundreds of thousands. However, funeral service turnout was noticeably lower than that of Iranian Revolutionary Guard General Qasem Soleimani in 2020. Raisi's remains were taken to Burjand on the 23rd of May before being transported to his hometown of Mashhad, where he was buried on the same day at the Imam Reza Shrine. Government offices and private businesses were ordered to be closed on the 22nd of May. Days of mourning were declared in Bangladesh, Cuba, India, Lebanon, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Syria, and Turkey. British Minister of State for Security Tom Tugendhat said that he will not mourn Raisi, adding that his regime has murdered thousands at home and targeted people here in Britain and across Europe. United States National Security Council spokesman John Kirby described Raisi as a man who had a lot of blood on his hands. Israel criticized the United Nations for holding a minute's silence for Raisi, calling it a disgrace. Maryam Rajavi, the leader of the exiled dissident People's Mujahedin Organization of Iran, said that Raisi's legacy was marked by his role in the 1988 executions of Iranian political prisoners, and described the crash as a monumental and irreparable strategic blow to the mullah's supreme leader Ali Khamenei and the entire regime, which would trigger a series of repercussions and crises within its leadership. Taghai Rahmani, the husband of detained activist and Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi, said Raisi's death would not structurally change the Iranian leadership under Khamenei. Raisi was married to Jamaleh Alem-el-Hoda, daughter of Mashhad Friday Prayers Imam Ahmed Alem-el-Hoda. She is an associate professor at Tehran's Shahid Beheshti University and president of the university's Institute of Fundamental Studies of Science and Technology. They had 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. One of their daughters studied at Sharif University and the other at Tehran University. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Thank you for watching. I hope I added something to you.